Imagine you're boarding a late-night flight. You scan your boarding pass, and the gate agent gives you a strange look. Then you hear a flight attendant quietly say, "We've got an SSS and a code yellow on this one." That right there is the secret language of aviation, and today you're going to understand it. The hidden language above 30,000 feet. Airlines and pilots talk in code all the time, right in front of passengers, because they don't want the cabin to panic. From 4-digit squawk numbers that scream emergency to innocent-sounding phrases like code blue that actually means someone might be dying on board, this language can completely change what's happening on your flight. So in this video, we're breaking down 12 secret aviation codes. Airlines hope you never learn, not because they're illegal, but because once you know them, you'll never hear an in-flight announcement the same way again. Stay with me until the end, because the last code is the one you actually want to hear if something goes very, very wrong. Code 1, SSSS, the 4 letters you don't want. First up, before you even get on the plane, SSSS on your boarding pass. If you ever see those 4 letters, it stands for Secondary Security Screening Selection, which means you've been flagged for extra TSA screening in the US. This usually means extra bag checks, more detailed pat-downs, swabs for explosive traces. It shows up more often on international flights or when your travel pattern looks unusual to the system, like one-way tickets or last-minute bookings. Next time you're at the airport, check your boarding pass. If you see SSSS, your flight just got a lot more interesting. Code 2, PNR, the file that knows your life. Every airline ticket you buy generates a little 6-character code called a PNR, passenger name record. It looks harmless, like a 7F3QZ, but that single code links to a file that holds your entire trip story, your full name, date of birth, contact info, flights, seat, special meals, and even notes like if you requested a wheelchair or have a pet in the cabin. In the US, Customs and Border Protection can access your PNR to see your travel history and patterns, which helps them decide who to screen more closely. So that tiny code on your boarding pass is worth way more than it looks. In the wrong hands, it can expose your entire travel profile. Code 3, Squawk 7500, the hijack code. Now we're going darker. Let's talk about squawk codes. Planes have a transponder that sends a 4-digit code to air traffic control. That code is called a squawk. Squawk 7500 is one you never want to be near. 7500 means unlawful interference. In plain English, a hijacking. Pilots don't say, "We're being hijacked," on the radio. They quietly set the transponder to 7,500 and ATC instantly knows something is seriously wrong. After that, controllers start treating that plane very differently, silently tracking it, clearing traffic out of its way, and notifying security agencies. The wild part? As a passenger, you'd probably have no idea the code went in. And if you think 7,500 is scary, wait until you hear what 7,700 means. Code 4, Squawk 7600, radio silence. Next up is Squawk 7600, and this one is all about silence. 7600 tells ATC the aircraft has lost radio communication. The pilots can't talk to anyone on the ground. That doesn't necessarily mean the plane is going down. It might be a broken radio, a power problem in the cockpit, or even a messed up audio panel. But once 7,600 goes in, controllers start clearing other traffic away and watching that plane like a hawk, because now they have to predict what the pilots will do next. From the cabin, you might just notice it's weirdly quiet from the cockpit for a while, or that the flight path doesn't quite match what you expected. Code 5, Squawk 7700, the all hell broke loose code. Here's the big one, Squawk 7700. This is the general emergency code, the transponder version of yelling Mayday to the entire system. Pilots use 7,700 for any serious emergency that isn't a hijacking or pure radio loss. Engine failure, cabin depressurization, fire or smoke, critical medical emergencies, landing gear problems. Once 7,700 is set, air traffic control clears airspace around you. Other controllers along your route get alerted. You suddenly jump to the front of the priority line for landing. You might feel a rapid descent, a sharp turn, or a sudden diversion to the nearest airport. But unless the captain tells you, you'll have no idea that, on radar screens across the region, your flight just lit up as the highest priority in the sky. And we're not done with secret emergencies yet. Some of the most intense codes don't go over the radio at all. They're whispered in the galley. Code 6, Pan-Pan, serious but not Mayday. Let's move from numbers to words. If you ever hear the term Pan-Pan, things just got very real, but not quite life or death yet. Pan-Pan is an international radio call that means urgent situation, but not immediate danger to life or the aircraft. Think of it as, we have a serious problem, but we're still in control. Examples might be a medical emergency where someone is very sick but stable, a technical problem that doesn't yet threaten the flight, low fuel that isn't yet critical. It alerts controllers and other aircraft that something is off without triggering full emergency chaos. Sometimes you won't hear it as a passenger. It may only be used in cockpit to ATC communication. Code 7, Code Yellow. Somebody's not okay. Inside the cabin, airlines often have quiet ways to signal medical trouble. One example used by some carriers is Code Yellow, which can indicate a passenger is sick or having a potential medical issue. You might see this play out like this. Flight attendant picks up the interphone. We've got a code yellow in 22C. Suddenly, a card appears. A medical kit shows up, maybe an oxygen bottle, and other crews subtly shift into position. To you, it just looks like a passenger not feeling well. To the crew, that one phrase triggers checklists, documentation, and possibly a call to doctors on the ground. But there's another color code that's way more serious, and it's one you actually might overhear. Code 8, Code Blue, the in-flight 911. On many airlines, especially those influenced by hospital terminology, phrases like Code Blue or Code Red are used for serious medical emergencies. Code Blue is often used for life-threatening medical issues, like suspected cardiac arrest or someone not breathing. Code Red on some carriers may mean a serious medical emergency or, in other contexts, even a fire situation. The exact meaning can vary by airline. These codes are deliberately vague so passengers don't freak out, but the crew instantly knows. Get the defibrillator, prepare oxygen, start the medical emergency checklist. Ask over the PA if there's a doctor or nurse on board. Next time you hear, if there's a medical professional on board, please ring your call button. Understand, a behind-the-scenes code has probably already gone out. Code 9, Code 300, Angel, Jim Wilson, Operation Sunrise, when someone dies. Now we're going to the heaviest part of this list. Sadly, people do die on airplanes, and airlines have codes for that. Some carriers use terms like Code 300 or Angel to indicate that a passenger has died or is suspected to have died on board. Other airlines have been reported using phrases like Jim Wilson or Operation Sunrise for the same thing. Discreet ways to say we have a body without causing panic. What happens next can include moving the body, sometimes to an empty row or a galley area if possible, filling out specific paperwork, notifying the destination airport so authorities and medical staff are ready when the plane lands. You might just notice the area around a seat quietly blocked off, or a long curtain drawn, and a very calm, very serious energy from the crew. And yes, the code word for an actual dead person on board is often something that sounds completely ordinary to everyone else. Code 10, Deadhead, the off-duty worker in your row. This next one sounds creepy, but is actually harmless. Deadhead. If you hear a flight attendant say something like, "We've got a deadhead in 14A," don't freak out. No one's dead. A deadhead is an airline employee, usually a pilot or flight attendant, who is traveling as a passenger to get repositioned for their next working flight. They're technically on duty for scheduling purposes, but not working your flight. The airline is just using your flight like a commuter bus to move them where they're needed. Why does this matter to you? Because if something goes wrong, say a serious medical emergency or a disorderly passenger, that deadhead might jump in and help the active crew. Code 11, souls on board, the number that really matters. One of the most important phrases in an emergency isn't about fuel, altitude, or runway length. It's souls on board. When there's any kind of emergency, controllers or rescue services need to know exactly how many living people are on that aircraft. Passengers, crew, sometimes even lap infants and jump seaters. They don't just ask, how many passengers? They ask, how many souls on board? That number guides how many ambulances and firefighters are dispatched, how big the search and rescue response needs to be, how resources are prioritized if something happens on approach or landing. So when you board and they count heads, that's not just for weight and balance or safety demos. It becomes crucial if the flight turns into an emergency. And speaking of emergencies, our final code is the one airlines really don't want you to recognize from your seat. Code 12, the quiet use of 7,700, the emergency you'll never hear announced. We talked about Squawk 7700 earlier, but here's the twist. Most of the time, as a passenger, you will never hear the words "we've declared an emergency" over the PA, even if 7700 is already set. Why? Because airlines want to avoid complete cabin panic. In many cases, the announcement you'll get will sound like this. Ladies and gentlemen, for operational reasons, we'll be making an unscheduled landing in city. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Behind that calm sentence, a lot might already have happened. The pilots may have called pan or even mayday. The squawk might be at 7,700. Fire trucks and emergency teams could already be rolling toward the runway. You'll see hints. Flight attendants doing more serious safety checks, crew securing the cabin earlier than usual, a surprisingly fast descent or tight turn toward a nearby airport. So the real code here is not a word, it's recognizing the pattern. Unusual diversion plus serious tone from crew equals something bigger is going on. Why airlines keep these codes quiet? So why does all this stay behind the curtain? To prevent panic. A panicked cabin is harder and more dangerous to manage in an emergency. To keep procedures efficient, short coded phrases trigger checklists and responses faster than full explanations. To protect security operations, especially around hijacking or unlawful interference. But as a passenger, knowing these codes doesn't make you paranoid. It makes you more aware. You understand that those calm voices and simple phrases usually have a lot of serious action happening behind them. Now I want you to imagine this. You're on a flight. The cabin feels normal, but you notice a few strange things. A discreet code yellow over the interphone, a sudden diversion, a captain who sounds just a little too calm. If you've watched this far, you now know how to read those signs. The hidden language of the skies that most passengers will never notice. Which of these 12 secret aviation codes freaked you out the most? And which one do you think you've already experienced without realizing it? Drop your answer in the comments and tell me if you've ever seen SSSS on your boarding pass or been on a flight that suddenly diverted for operational reasons. If you learned something new today, don't let this video disappear into the algorithm. Hit like so more people can decode what's really happening on their flights. Share this with a friend who travels a lot, especially that one who always says, "Flying is boring." And if you want more deep dives into the secret systems running your everyday life, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. You'll never hear airplane announcements the same way again, and that's exactly why airlines hope you never learn these codes.